It's the wrong phone, but we'll use it. I think that's Mike. Mike, I think that's... Okay, Mike, is that you?
Pastor Paul,
All right. Hey,
your
Mike,
other phone is
not
it's
working?
not connecting.
Okay, and you know why? Because I was out of the country. I got back and I just noticed I didn't pay this bill. So
Oh,
I guess they won't work if AT&T doesn't like that, do they?
no, I don't think so. I don't think they
So
will.
we'll use Heidi's phone, okay? But it's real low on the battery. So there's a third line. Do you know that one?
Let's see. Let me see if I have a last number here. Hold on. Let me see.
Yeah. The
Let's
last.
look at this pool real quick. Let's see.
So, we were traveling and, you can't plug in your phones. And then I forgot to pay.
Right.
The last number should end in a 9.
Let's see if we got it here. Let's see.
Sorry, folks.
2 nines?
Yep.
2 nines?
Yeah, 2 9s. Yeah.
Okay. You want me to call that one?
Yeah, I'll call that. We have full charge.
Okay, we'll do it right now.
Okay. All right. Sorry, guys, about that. Little PBT problem here. Look, I got jet lag, okay? Okay, Mike, you there?
Okay, that's me.
All right, beautiful. Let me turn you up a little bit, and I think you're going to be good. How we doing?
Everything good?
I think so. Everybody can hear Mike pretty good? All right, they're saying, Mike, you're a legend. I agree with that. How you feel tonight?
Good.
Thank you for doing a special Friday night broadcast. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. That's not a problem.
Mike, and I put the 4 horsemen up here and from Revelation, and because it seems like, I'm just asking. I mean, I'm not saying that it feels like, it looks like maybe all 4 of these horses have got out of the stall and are galloping. The white horse of a new world order or a beast kingdom, trying to be a seat trying to be established. The black horse of the economy, a great reset, or what are they trying to do? New digital dollar, one world currency. The red horse of war, I with the great sword, I think that might be in play. And then the pale horse of pandemics, plagues, and diseases, and death. And am I wrong by saying they're all out of the stall?
No, I have a view too, and I think they're all out. I think those mindsets and spirits have been released. Good thing is Jesus released them, so that's a good thing.
I like that, and I'm really glad you said that. In other words, you're going to keep it that Christ is in control.
That's right. He did. I think he released them. Pastor Paul, if you think about something that, especially, I know people have their views,
right?
But as we go through history and we reflect upon history, take for example the red horse, and the peace removed from the earth. We've had no peace in the earth. We've had none. We really have had none. We've gone through world wars, conflicts, and right now, some of the internal turmoil among governments is at a height nobody has ever seen before. Also, I know everybody has their own view. Mine is a bit skewed, right? I'm not the theologian, but
you're close.
For example, the first one, the white horse, who has a bow with a crown, but he has no arrow. I've always seen that as posturing. You have these kings, and in their mind, they want to conquer other kingdoms. Right. They want dominion over everything. They're already crowned. That's, to me, that represents a type of leadership. But it's almost like Jesus released a spirit in the minds of all of these kings to have this spirit of wanting to dominate and overtake other kingdoms. And he said that in Matthew 24, kingdoms against kingdoms. And it seems like that is already in the earth. But they're heightening. In other words, the effects that they're having upon the earth are growing. They're becoming seen now, right? Yep. And if we collapse time, if we condense time, there's some amazing facts as far as how many people are dying all the time, continuous, because every day a certain amount of people die from all the factors we see in Revelation.
Wow.
From that horse. And then you have, of course, you have a percentage of people born, but you always have a percentage of people dying. And that number is increasing. The black horse with the scales, a measure of wheat for a penny, and so on and so forth with the balances. I've always seen that as the establishment of something. A long time ago, we didn't have an exchange system that was worldwide. We did not.
Right.
And
right.
it's only as of late, especially in 2020 through 23, we have a global system in place right now, a global exchange system. If we didn't have all the nations, we're not partaking in that. But when Bahrain started to invest money in a brand new kingdom in the Middle East, the exchange system was centralized, so to speak. And now everybody, right, instead of you trading a couple cows for food or something like that, everybody pays money. I've always seen that as money has to be had so that you can buy what the land yields. Like a global system that's already in place that uses specifically money, right? Specifically money. I've seen that. So that horse is gone, and they've been working on this. One of my greatest points would be Jesus broke these seals. These spirits, I'll call them spirits, went out into the earth.
Yep.
People have these in their mindset. They have been working towards these goals since Christ was resurrected and sat at the right hand of the Father.
Amen.
Death has been increasing by all those means. So I believe they're out of the stall. I believe they've been working. We're just getting to the point where we actually begin to see the effects of these spirits in the earth. And it's getting a lot worse, especially this year, than at any other time.
So in other words, and folks, we got Mike around the world with us tonight. We're so glad he's with us. Special Friday night edition. I'm in agreement with you. I'm glad you agree with me that yes, these horses are out of the stall and they seem to be increase everything. And there's no doubt all four horsemen of the apocalypse, all of their categories are increasing. And this year will probably be the worst ever for all four. Let me ask you a question, Mike, because this is really weird. We had the we had the train derailment in Ohio. We had the truck crash in Arizona with hazmat material. We had the train derailing in Detroit. I think last week you told us there was 2 cars on that train that's supposed to have had hazardous material, and the public was not aware of it. We had a plant in Ohio, a metals plant, explode, 1 dead, 13 injured. And then so this morning they sent a plane out of Arkansas with 5 environmental consulting firm employees to go and review the plant fire in Ohio, and their plane crashes and kills all 5. Okay? Do you believe in coincidences, or should I think that something nefarious is going on here?
Well, I know we have the pulses coming through. I know we have that. As far as coincidences, no, I don't believe in coincidences. But there's one subject nobody's talking about.
All right.
Nobody is. And it's always that one subject nobody is talking about. That is normally in operation because no one is mentioning it. Remember something, any event in the world is always taking people by surprise. It's taking them by surprise because there are areas of life people forget about if they're not spoken about. There's one specific area that no one is talking about, and that's terrorism, right?
Right.
No one is talking about terrorism.
You're right.
And so for a long time, as a nation, a melting pot, we have many different types of people here in America. But there's one thing we cannot control. Everybody who came to America does not have the American goals at heart. They don't have the ideology of this nation at heart. It's kind of like a person with a different religion moving into Italy. Say they're a Buddhist, they move right next to the Pope's house. That's not going to work out too well because this individual is going to have his own faith. And if it's one thing in the world, nobody can fight faith. The faith of an individual cannot be fought. In this country, when people are coming into this country, we, especially since 2001, more and more people came in and they began to build up their own religions in an already Christian nation. So that was a battle. And of course, in 2009, 2010, Christ was totally washed away. But Islam was propped up. You heard that name everywhere.
Yep.
Right now, you don't know what the loyalties of an individual are who have legitimate positions, but they may have a faith that is not conducive of American ideologies and the faith of Christians in this country. So I believe a lot of these accidents that you're seeing are sabotage. For example, the train derailments, that is absolute neglect. That's neglect.
Yes.
Maintenance companies, right? They go through strict standards to put a train car on the rails and to approve it to go. This is just something they do all the time. But I'm noticing more and more there are maintenance flaws and issues, unchecked things that go kind of like Boeing did with some of their aircraft some years back. But when you investigate, you find that the individuals had a loyalty to a different faith other than Christianity. In every single case, that happened at Boeing, that happens at North Fork Southern, that happens in a lot of these steel working plants, manufacturing facilities. You'd be surprised how many people are loyal and hate America, but they're here. Right? They were born here, but they hate this country because of their faith.
Wow.
And so nobody is speaking about terrorism. And I'll just say it bluntly. I believe that many of these cases are sabotage. And it's increasing, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And you're not talking about somebody who's a janitor. No. You're talking about executives who can erase their trails, who can assign different tasks to individuals for extra money. So it's very easy in America, Pastor Paul, to pay anybody $10,000 to get them to do just about anything in America. It's very easy. It's very easy.
So Pemex, the company Pemex, today hit by fires in 3 different facilities in one day. 5 people are missing, presumed dead. 8 people hospitalized in one fire. Another fire broke out in a separate town, same company, Pemex, in that facility, and then in Pemex, Deer Park, Texas, an oil refinery owned by Pemex exploded and went on fire. Do you believe that 3? Now, there's 2 things. One, sabotage, terrorism, as you're saying, and the other part is, as you said, as these waves of energy come in, there's going to be plant explosions and eruptions. Chemicals are going to explode. I mean, this one here, you have to be suspicious of terrorism, but then again, you have to always consider what else could be the cause, because it's happening in a lot of places.
That's true. And as far when you're dealing with chemical plants, when you have those volatile agents or compressed agents, that could easily, the nucleus could be knocked out and they could change their inert properties. That could easily happen. But one of my issues is you have these companies who, by the way, and it's so strange, I don't believe in coincidences, but you also had a billionaire who purportedly committed suicide. But this billionaire, if anybody looks into this billionaire, they're going to find that this guy was one of the architects of LBOs. And that is when you as a leverage buyout. In other words, if people saw the movie Pretty Woman, right?
Yeah.
That's what this guy did. He was the architect behind that. Right. So he would take and take some of the debts. And essentially, here's what it is. You take the debts of a company, you leverage them to buy out the debts of other companies and everything else. So you're taking what Americans owe to a company. You're utilizing that to purchase or acquire another company. Yep. And then it takes maybe 6, 7, 8 years for everybody to get their money back. This guy was an architect of that. I know a lot of people say he was a good fella, this, that, and the other, but I'll tell you something. That's a pretty that business that he was doing, making all that money in.
Capitalizing.
There could have been a slew of things going through his mind.
He capitalized on troubled companies that get going. Let's say you have an entrepreneur. He's growing his company too fast. He doesn't have the capital. He has to borrow. Then, he loses a customer. Now he's down so many millions, maybe in debt. He can't catch up. And somebody comes along and says, don't worry about it. I'm going to be your sugar daddy, basically. I'm going to be a venture capitalist. I'm going to buy into your company so much, you pay me the debt. Well, when he can't pay the debt, eventually you take the company. It becomes yours. And then he would sell the company. Usually what they do is they sell off the assets, or they sell the company to a bigger company that's in the same industry. And then the guys that he used their money to do this with, they get a nice return of 12 or 14%, which is way better than you're going to get if you're putting your money in the bank. That's what you're saying. But that ruins lives. It does wreck lives. People get laid off. Factory owners who own the plants go broke or barely get enough to keep their shirt on, and that's about it. So
yeah, they end up losing a lot.
Yeah.
And of course it is, his portfolio he had returns of up to 70 to 80 to 90%. So he was doing good financially. But he was also a person of conviction. And now here's what happens. If you architect something with an idea involved and it turns sour, you're going to have some heavy conviction from what you've done, right? From what you've unleashed. Because once you, this LBO process, which, by the way, is connected to other processes. Once you start something like that, you can't shut that down. People capitalize on this, and they begin to, like monsters, go out there and do things like the Lehman Brothers. They went through that same process. These guys amassed all those assets buying debts. That's a very tricky business, but you also have a time period that companies have to wait, and everybody's broke until that time. So it's not instant gratification. He may have had the money, but how could a person sit there with themselves knowing that they have ruined the lives of a great many people who will not see a return for another 10 years in this economy, right? That's awful. It could have been a case of that, right? I think this guy actually saw what he unleashed. That's my personal opinion. I think he saw what was unleashed. I think he had no power to stop it. I think he sees what's happening in our government and what lengths are willing to go to prove a political point. We have a political war right now that spans the globe, and there will be a winner. He also knows if he's a billionaire, he has knowledge of who has real power in this world, and that could be shocking if they let you into their little side. And I'll say something else. The beast everybody is looking for, this beast, this guy, is going to rise, and fairly quickly. And I believe that word is starting to get out to those who really have stake in the world's economy. As a billionaire, he has a stake. He's a stakeholder in the world's economy at a high level as a billionaire. Upon learning that, how do you live with yourself, knowing what you're feeding, knowing what you're empowering? He may not have been able to live with that.
You're exactly right. And you start thinking about that. You start thinking, does he realize, after he's 78 years old, so yeah, does he really realize just where his life is and what avenue he took, how many lives he might have destroyed along his way? And you start working, and you wonder about some of these guys out there that's got unbelievable amounts of wealth.
He won't be the last. He will not be the last, Pastor. There's something. There's a beast. This beast is most certainly 100% rising right now. He's rising right now.
Amen to that. I can guarantee it. Folks, Mike from the World's with us tonight. We're talking about the four horsemen of the apocalypse. It seems like they have certainly opened. It seems like that, not opened, I should say. Yeah, they're open. That's right. Jesus is the one that broke the seals. He's broke them already. And as Mike says, they're galloping. Mike, also, while we're talking about this, China, we know what happened. Harris went to Germany. She threw Putin pretty well under the bus and called him out and said, look, they are committing atrocities and the justice must be served. So basically the line was drawn between NATO and Russia. And then China steps up and says, well, oh, by the way, just for the record, Taiwan belongs to us. And then today we have a Chinese fighter jet confronts a U.S. Navy plane, and here it is. And just so happens CNN was on board, kind of convenient. But what's your take on this? This is becoming almost an everyday occurrence, isn't it?
Yeah, well, China they're pretty emboldened. They have some pretty high tech things, and in their minds, probably, you have admirals, you have generals who are concerned about China. They're concerned about a war with China. In fact, there were a couple of generals who posted their memos got out, and of course it never really picked up pace, but they're very concerned. They know we're going to have to go to war with China. They know for a fact we're going to have to go to war with China, and it's not going to be some easy war, because China, a lot of people just simply don't know about the tech that China has. They don't know about their technology. They have no idea that China was one of the first ones to have a Gen 6 fighter. Right? And we're getting down to calling people's bluff. And this is where Christians are going to have to be sober. There are a couple of things coming about. It's going to require great sobriety from Christians. I know that countries always have their citizens believe in them, right?
Right.
But the whole world's about to see the truth. Pastor Paul, somebody's bluff is going to be called. And let me just say this, in order for China to approach an American plane on patrol, that plane was not by itself. It has air coverage from the ground and sea. How in the world could a Chinese plane, given the technology that floats around in people's minds that the USA has, that is not classified, well, it's kind of classified, but it's on the ships, why don't we ever use it, right? I have to bring up the balloons again. All these balloons flying over, a tracer or a trace track will show the origin of anything in the sky. You can tell where birds come from. You can tell where the swarms of insects come from. But you mean to tell me they can't tell where a balloon comes from? And by the way, that balloon was flying in a very disputed part or a very sensitive part of the atmosphere. The higher you get, the more coverage is up there in the atmosphere, right above 15,000 feet. Militaries can see a net, right? Flying in space.
A
and
net?
They can track where it came from. Yes.
From space?
How could they not identify a balloon?
You know
when it's a fact, Pastor Paul. From space, they can analyze. If you threw a handkerchief on the ground, from space they can analyze what that material is and who was the manufacturer. So how could they not identify a balloon? The truth is they could identify a balloon, right? No one dropped the ball. These are automated systems. There's something fishy going on here. And I'm telling you, it goes back to politics. It also goes back to a forced kingdom. Something that's this kingdom that's being put in place is going to be forced upon everybody. People are going to find themselves powerless to do it. And you mentioned China whizzing by our fighters. Right. They get more confrontational than that. You know, it's only a matter of weeks, probably, before one of the second incursions. Right now, under the water, people can't track that. There have been incidences underneath the oceans concerning China and the USA already.
Really?
There have been, incidences. Russia's also involved. There have already been cases. It has not reached the surface yet, but it will. It's only a matter of time before that happens. And Taiwan, they weigh in the balance. It's not looking good for Taiwan right now, because every time we start mounting up patrols in certain parts to have a faster response to Taiwan, well, we have an issue with Russia, or we have an issue with China, or we have an issue in the Middle East, and we're spread out too thin right now. So nobody should be surprised if you start seeing recruiting commercials go about, and people start being called up for service in certain capacities, because there are some things happening that are just unbelievable. Kind of like Zelensky, right? How do you like the idea of Zelensky going to talk to China?
I'm shocked by. I've got that right here, and I'm glad you're going to talk about this. Here it is, folks. Ukraine's Zelensky says he plans to meet with China's Xi. How does that work? I mean, when China is obviously building a coalition with Russia, I mean, what's he looking for here?
This is where sobriety comes in. People are about to witness the greatest betrayal that's ever taken place in modern history. They're about to see it. And what it will unleash is almost a guaranteed war within itself, right? The players that people are acquainted with, we know them by propaganda. We know them by what other people have said. We don't know them personally. We know them by public reports and public news articles. We don't know them personally.
Right.
We're quickly about to find out that certain people portrayed in individuals they are absolutely not, right? I'll say something else, that it stings a little bit, but Zelensky has already snubbed the U.S. government twice. It looks good in front of the cameras, but it's not like that behind cameras. And people are going to find out a painful truth. And it will drag us into a conflict faster, because the USA normally has to be pulled into a conflict. Normally, they have to be pulled into a conflict.
It seems like Biden and Harris have been frustrated, irritated, and really trying to beat the war drums with NATO. And are you saying that's because Zelensky's not really who he says he is?
Well, when it's all uncovered, you're going to find out that basically the Democratic government does not know how to slow down what's been started. If you take note, anybody who mentions war, right, they just smile about it and kind of downplay it. They shouldn't do that, right? No. There's a main person driving war, and it's going to keep going. Zelensky may not be who people think think he is.
He was
and
paid
the causes
for,
of countries are going to be different.
Was it? I mean, George Soros is the guy who funded and put Zelensky in power. I mean, he was an actor. He was a comedian.
He was an actor. He was an activist for some of the new agenda things. He's still an ongoing activist for some of the new agenda things. He stands against certain policies concerning good morals. The uncovering, the unpacking of these things is going to upset people. I already know it is. But they just have to get up and dust themselves off and keep going. It should be a lesson when everything is uncovered that you really can't trust what's presented to you, right? But all a person need do is ask Christ and wait for his answer. Because in the body of Christ is the answer to, unfortunately, the true answer to who these people are. You're not going to get it by media. You're going to get exactly what they want you to hear.
Right.
And Zelensky has been very busy. He's taking U.S. funds, right?
Yep.
And it's supposed to go to the war machine. But see, we made a mistake. You can't give somebody money without conditions. We didn't set conditions the first time.
We just gave them the money.
Was under, that's right. It was under a NATO umbrella, right? That umbrella of NATO is very thin and weak. And so we can't prosecute or do anything about that, which is why we sent investigators, we sent auditors, and everybody else straight to the Ukraine to say what happened to the 80 billion. Why didn't it go on machinery? How are they out of this, that, and the other already? And so there's a breakdown in communication. Germany is asking similar questions, but Zelensky is going to take a big step, and a pretty big betrayal will come from this. So people aren't get ready for it.
So some people, I'm hearing all kinds of rumors that some of this money that went into Ukraine didn't go for weapons, but went to prop up Zelensky's government and personally help Zelensky. And some of it, I'm hearing, may have even, unfortunately, maybe kicked back into the political world here in America. Are we hearing any of that, Mike?
Well, look at it this way. You remember when the war started?
Yeah.
Everybody started to flee, right?
Yeah. Today, 1 year ago today. Yep.
He would not, remember, he stopped people from fleeing.
Yes, I do remember.
And he said, nope, you got to pick up a weapon.
Yep.
Right?
I remember that.
Then he called people back. Then he had volunteers that came in there to fight. But they quickly found out it wasn't all it was painted to be.
No.
Money has been paid to people for propaganda on the internet by the Ukraine. So it's an ugly situation among the leaders. The people are innocent. I'll tell you that now.
Yes.
But these governments are crooks.
They're crooks.
And so you have all these things. He will not let people out of the Ukraine, Pastor Paul. He won't. So you have people, they call it a meat grinder when they go there to the Ukraine, because he's not letting people out. But all this will come to a head because a new deal is about to be struck. And the Ukraine is going to try and broker something and take advantage of a pretty large sum of resources and money to try and build a bridge for their own benefit. It's not going to work out. I'm just thankful that some of the people got out and went back to Israel. Very thankful for that.
Yep.
Some of the people got out and went back to Turkey. But if you notice, the people who are going into the Ukraine, you have a lot of people from Turkey that are going. We're not talking about good citizens, but ruthless individuals who have special operations training, right? Who could care less who they kill or what they kill, just so long as they do kill. And they have rotations, have started going in and out of that place. Well, the cap is coming off of all of this. It's not working out too well. People are starting to ask questions about the money, right? Again, if they get those tanks from us, it's going to cost them $55 million a day just to run them. They can't do that. Plus the Tiger tanks, right? They can't do that. It's too much money. Yeah. It's impossible. And so we have a pretty big situation forming. In the meanwhile, Putin has launched another portion of his naval forces. The Arctic is probably the safest region on the earth right now. Right now, it's the safest place on earth. No other place is safe, point blank, because everything is so contentious. And Zelensky, once he blows his whistle, is going to cause trouble within NATO.
Yes, and that's what I figure is coming, and that's why it seems like NATO's trying to figure out a way to protect Ukraine or stay in Ukraine, but you wonder why. What is their real motivation?
It's almost like blackmail. Now, you have certain countries over there, they vehemently want Putin out of the way. They do. Yes. Some of the larger countries like us, It's not going to hurt us if Putin stays. In fact, I'll make a small prediction. This is going to seem strange. After a time, the USA and Russia are going to join forces. After a time, they're going to join forces. Watch and see. And it'll be a lot of people around to see it. Some people won't see it. They're going to join forces. They're going to have to fight what they have given birth to, because this war in the Ukraine has given all these assets. It's happening again. This always happens. First, we send munitions, missile defense systems, tanks, but we think we're arming the Ukraine. We're not arming the Ukraine. We're arming a component that will take control of all the assets of the Ukraine.
Didn't we just see that? Didn't we just basically see that in Afghanistan? We left all the equipment, and the Taliban is running that country, has all the equipment, the money, and the power. And
they took a lot of that equipment, Pascal. They took a lot of that equipment and gave it right to Iran.
Yep.
They give it to Iran. So now, here we are again. So, and now we're arming the Ukraine. That is a staging area. But who eventually runs that place is just going to be a shocker. I think that it's a very sensitive subject, yes, but the cap is coming off, and everybody's going to have clear knowledge of this. It's going to make some people angry. I would suggest that everybody get sober now, right? And I have a statement in my mind that anything dealing with humanity can potentially take place. But terrorism, Pascal, you don't hear that word. The reason I'm mentioning it is this. They're cushioning, or let's just say programming, the populace. I'm going to give you a scenario. We have a couple of more incidences. We have a couple of plane crashes from America, right?
Yep.
A couple more. This mixed with a couple more factories, an increase in violence in one specific area. Right after that, you're going to hear talk of the importance or an emergency with some nuclear facility. Yeah, because that's always been a primary.
I mean, we had target. A fire just 2 nights ago, Mike, in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. A nuclear ammunition factory has a fire. You might say, well,
that's depleted uranium and elements like that. So that's not good. That stuff goes right into the atmosphere, right?
Yep.
Depleted uranium is bad. It has a pretty long half-life, which means people will be affected. But in this case, this nuclear problem I'm talking about is this, because this is where the complicated part comes in.
Okay.
It should be no secret that in America we have a political civil war. We have a war within the government right now. It's a very violent war. People are paying the price for this war. It will take a toll, but we're going to see it bolstered. Any type of political disagreement is always solidified with a horrific incident.
Will there be assassin? There probably already is. Maybe not high-profile people, but certainly mid-level people. There are assassinations.
Well, even right now, Pascal, you have militias, right? You have militias right now who have declared that they're going to take out large portions of the Democratic Party, and you have the opposition saying that they're going to do the same to the Republican Party.
Right.
So you already have these militias who, by the way, are being financed a lot of money because they have equipment, they have vehicles, they have anti-tracers, they have GPS blocking devices and cell phone jammers and everything else you can think of.
Yep.
So these militias, some of the conversations on the radio of these militias is quite direct, it's very consistent, and it's a big deal. In fact, if people knew what certain groups in America are holding back from, public knowledge, I think everybody would go to church tonight. They wouldn't wait till tomorrow. They go tonight.
What?
And they would never let their kids back on the streets again, because you'd be surprised who's right around the corner from everybody, right?
Right.
We're not talking about a group in one state. We're talking about millions of people within America, tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people in America who are ready to pay the ultimate price to establish a goal. Because here's what they're always saying, and this comes from literally tens of thousands of communications per day, that the government is gone.
Yeah, this every day.
That Washington is gone. But unlike normal rhetoric, these people are ready to receive an order to move, right? They're ready to move. They're ready to do their thing en masse. So you're looking at
they're just waiting on the call.
What people say again?
They're just waiting on the call.
Yes, they are. They've been trained. They already set up the training sites. They've already filtered through quite a few people and gave them a type basic training. You have ex-military personnel teaching special forces tactics. This is inside America for Americans. Northcom has a headache, right? Because they're trying to track all these things. It will most certainly blow up. They've not seen this scenario ever. Not ever. They've not seen this scenario ever.
Wow.
So we know we're going to have some type of, it's going to be a lot of problems that we tend to face. And this election year could be the deadliest election year that we've ever had coming up.
We're still,
right?
I'm wearing,
if we last that long.
I'm wearing the pineapple shirt, Mike. I know you're the pineapple prophecy. I broke out a different one, but it's still in the fact that you've had the dream, the pineapple shirt you've been talking about, you know.
Isn't it funny though, Pastor Paul? Isn't it funny that I had that dream, but ever since I met you, things have been spiraling out of control in the world. They've been getting progressively worse.
It's been about the last 10 years. You and I have been talking. We met each other. This last 10 years has been unbelievable. You would have to be absolutely just spiritually blind or don't want to look in the Bible, because if you sat down and read Matthew 24, or you went and read Revelation, or some other Daniel, or you want to go over into 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 or somewhere. If you just start reading, you'll see what's happening right now, all over the world happening right now. Let me ask you, the people are asking, when's the next wave? Obviously, Mike, that the 18th of February, the wave you talked about was going to hit our solar system. It happened. I mean, we had an X-class 2.2 solar flare. We had a plasma vortex erupt off the sun. We had another one last night or early this morning, another explosion off the sun. We had the 10th worst earthquake in the history of humanity. I think it's 49,000 are dead, and it's probably going to rise to maybe 60 probably before it's all said and done, when they get everything uncovered. It's still shaking and quaking. We had a 7.2 today in Indonesia. Mike, when's the next wave? What is this? Are we done with this wave, and when's the next one?
Well, we have a few more coming up. It's a few more, not just one. It's a few more coming up. And the dates of these waves, although it's not that far off, they are of three different natures. They're coming from three different locations, these are. So they're unlike the other ones, which means I don't think we're prepared. Or the sun could totally absorb the effects of one. So in the month of March, when we take a real close look at something, because we have to, there's a small debris problem we have to deal with prior to the 15th of March, right? We actually have very small objects being tracked inbound straight into the inner solar system. And it looks like Earth is in the target. Now, here's what makes it strange. These things have a corkscrew rotation coming in, so they're not coming in a straight line. That's not what's happening. It's almost as though something very heavy was in between or in the middle of these things, and they were orbiting something, right?
Okay.
But then that heavy influence was pulled out, which means now the gravitational force of the sun is altering all those vectors, causing inertia to change within all these objects. But they're probably headed here to the Earth, that's a small, tiny cluster.
Well,
small, tiny cluster could hit the atmosphere.
We had, just a couple weeks ago, we had one hit the atmosphere and blow up. It hit the Earth. We only had 7 hours heads up, according to spacephoto.com. Then we had a 1,000-pound meteorite land in Texas, McAllen, Texas, 3 nights ago, 1,000-pounder. But it sounds like there's a cluster. There's a bunch of them coming headed, looks like in our direction. There's no way to escape them all. Is that what you're saying? We don't know.
Well, this one is, let's just say this is a pre-cluster to the actual meteor storm we're going to entertain. We will have a meteor storm, but this cluster came out of nowhere. They're so small and they were moving in such an odd form, right, that some of the software did not really capture them. It wasn't looking for anything that moved like that. But they're most certainly coming here. The trajectories are beginning to alter, right? Because they're going to have to deal with quite a few things. They're going to have to get people off the International Space Station. They're going to have to get people behind a line of defense satellites that we have. Certain defense satellites have been very active lately. Very, very, very active lately.
Doing what? Shooting at meteorites?
Yes, they've been hitting things. We have something that's is almost like a projectile beam, you could call it, right? that when it hits an object, that object will explode and it will pulverize that object, right? As soon as it hits the atmosphere, that means most of it turns into ash and it will fall to the earth, right? So it's just ash. The ash may be of a different nature, but it hits the ash and the ash falls in quite a big area. Like West Virginia and Maryland is having right now, white particles are falling all over the place right now as we speak. But
it's
that
ash.
is in
ash
effect.
It's ash from space, from a.
Well, not from space, but from certain impacts that have taken place over your heads. People can't see what's happening over your heads in the daytime. This is very important because in the daytime, if we don't have a clear day, it's very difficult to see any explosions in space. Even when we have a clear day, it's very difficult to see an explosion in space. But I can guarantee you the explosions are happening all the time. There's a buildup of inbounds of both asteroids and other things are starting to build up out there too. In fact, the very nature of what these satellites are doing is spooky on one end, but it's necessary on the other. And people are soon to see all this with their own eye. They won't need an interpreter. The problem will be, Pastor Paul, people are going to have to deal with the effects of what's being defended, I guess you could say. They're going to have to deal with the effects of toxins coming out of the atmosphere at some point.
Let me read Revelation 8, verse 5. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. There were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. The first angel sounded. The 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So when the first angel sounded, there followed hail, fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. And a second angel sounded, and it was a great mountain, burning with fire, was cast into the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood. And then the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. And the third part of the ships were destroyed. And we could go on and on. So, Mike, this first part when it says the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar cast in the earth, it's almost like dust coming from off the altar, brimstone, fire, hailstone. Is that what we're talking about?
Pastor, I think when that hits, that's going to wipe out quite a few people. And I'll tell you why. Because it says all the green grass was burned up, right?
Yes.
Upon investigation, is cast out to the earth from the altar, because at the altar, the prayers of the saints were received. And then the prayers of the saints have complaints in them. Not just any complaint, but Lord, when are you coming to deal with this evil darkness on the earth? So you have all that went up to the altar, and the angel took a big scoop of that and kachinki, right? So for all the green grass to burn up, there was a simulation performed on this. In order for all the green grass to burn up, right? Now every landmass does not have grass. In order for all the grass to burn up, you're looking at a major portion of man dying. There's no way we can survive
right,
with all the green grass burnt up. If it all burns, that's an event that is on a scale we've not seen before. So you're looking at it at least, at least, I'd say 1/5 of humanity gone and dying that very day, week, or how long it takes. And I think it's not going to. I think it almost looks like these trumpets. These are all the events that you would expect from a very large inbound object.
Yes.
From a secondary star coming into our solar system. These are all the effects you would see. You would see many meteorites hitting the earth.
Yes.
Right? Fires everywhere.
That's what
intense
it says.
Fires.
That's what it sounds like. Hail, fire, mingled with blood, a mountain burning, hitting the ocean. A third part of the sea becomes like blood. A third of the creatures in the sea die. A third of the ships on the oceans are destroyed. And then a third angel sounds, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and the fountains of waters. And the name of that star is called wormwood. And a third part of the waters became wormwood, or poisonous, or radiation, or bitter. Many men died of the waters because they're made bitter. So you're saying it's a process of meteorites falling, big rocks, little rocks, hailstones, and are radioactive apparently. this is a process. Are we? And you're saying this sounds like the evidence of a binary system going by, shaking the heavens. Well, here's a question I've got for you. An article. This just came out 12 hours before this broadcast tonight. Massive forbidden planet orbits a strangely tiny star, only 4 times its size. So what they're trying to say here is, okay, 2 weeks ago it was called Planet 9. Now we're talking about a forbidden planet. And then it goes on to say it's sort of like a dwarf star. Are they, I mean, is this soft disclosure? Are we slowly, softly telling them, the Earth, that something's going to happen, something's happening, Mike?
Well, it almost seems like they're conditioning the people, so they won't totally be the blame for it. If something were to happen to the Earth right now, right, people, they'd be out for blood because it would kill their relatives. You know, people have families, and several parts of the Earth are going to be highly affected, which means people are going to say, well, they didn't tell us about this. Who didn't tell us? Your government didn't. And then that means all those associated with government will not be able to come out of their homes or the White House, right? Because people are at the tipping point right now. If they storm the White House during the election season, what do you think they'll do? If meteorites come in that they can most certainly see, right?
And nobody told
them. And
it
strikes homes and is killing people, and nobody told them anything. So let's take this a bit further.
Okay.
If something were to come and the government didn't tell anybody, people would be angry unless they believed the government had no ability to see it. Now, how would they convince people that they have no ability to see meteorites coming in? Maybe not being able to spot a balloon and to identify, right?
So you start by the balloon. Say, we didn't even see it. We didn't know it was there till some photographer in Montana saw it. You're telling me, Mike, that all these satellites and all of this infrared and James Webb telescope and the Hubble and all these sophisticated military apparatuses of intelligence couldn't see a floating balloon, but some little journalist in freaking Montana, he could see it.
That's very.
They're dumbing us down, right?
Is that what they're doing? Because I'll tell you what, when that balloon story popped out, when 41 balloons were flying over, and they announced they don't know what it is. Are you kidding me?
41.
They don't know what it is. That was highly disturbing to find out that they said to people they did not know what it was. They didn't know what it was or who it was from. That was very disturbing because I know that was a big 100%. That was a 3,000% lie.
Yeah.
But if they're saying they can't track a balloon or they can't tell the identity, even the balloon that they blew up, that was a civilian balloon. That was purposed, Pastor Paul.
Yeah.
You don't engage a civilian balloon from a Gen 5 fighter or Gen 3 fighter,
it's ludicrous,
right, and not know what it is.
That's ludicrous.
They did that because people instantly began. They can see social media too. They can track social media. Right after they did that, they said, we don't have the systems that everybody said we had because they can't even shoot down. They shot 2 missiles, not one, at a cost of $532,000 per missile. They shot 2 of them.
Canada couldn't even hit it.
$60 balloon.
Canada said, thank you. We couldn't get it. We weren't capable. So the church, in other words, they're lying to us. They're saying they don't have the capabilities. Canada can't.
They are lying. That is a lie.
That's
a lie, Pascal, because you could throw a quarter in the air, right? if you dropped a quarter out of an aircraft, right, and they release lock a Patriot missile, it would take that quarter out. Okay, so how could they not hit a balloon? And in the missile systems on an aircraft. Right. This is, we're not talking about Vietnam era missile pods. That's not what we're talking. We're talking about guided munitions, right? That will track a target, heat or not, and just kill it. You're not talking about some archaic weapon without guidance. Right? These systems have very sophisticated guidance systems on there, and they're equipped with AI. So, but the public bought it, didn't they? Not one person came on social media and disputed the fact that they could not target lock these balloons. They didn't say they got to be lying because our equipment can track that. Nobody came out to say that, and that's very disturbing to me. Because if people believe that, they're not going to blame the government when a bunch of things fall into their homes and set the grounds on fire.
No,
right?
They're not.
They're not. And Texas, I hate to say it, but when this happens, Texas is the last place I'm going to want to be. because of what's underneath the ground.
What's underneath it? Wait a minute. Oh, because the oil? Because the oil and the gas?
They're not. There was a conversation back in 1992 about some of the piping that's underneath Texas, all throughout the state. It's almost like it was purposely neglected, tied up with bureaucracy. If something hits in Texas, it will expand the fire that's already started underneath the ground. There's already a fire underneath the ground in Texas.
Mike, whoa.
Okay, number one, there's already a fire that won't go out. It will not go out.
The fire's burning under Texas, and it won't go out. And
it won't go out.
Nobody's telling us about the fire burning under Texas.
No, they're not going to tell you about the fire. They're going to try to. They have the Army Corps of Engineers, right? Places like Fort Hood and those places around Fort Hood and Killeen, Texas, all those places. They're going to take care of some of those burn areas. But you're looking, if something were to crash into the top side with the erosion that we've had from weather and rain, excessive moisture, right, it's going to collapse. And when it collapses, that fire is coming up topside. But you have pipelines down below the ground. You have big lines of oil that go out to the coasts to fill up the tankers and everything else. If Texas is hit, that's going to be a catastrophe. That'll be a big catastrophe because they'll have fires from above and below.
What part of Texas, Mike? What part of Texas?
That's in. If you are east in Texas, going like Galveston, those places, going all the way up that coastline where the refineries are with the nuclear facilities, up to more refineries, going up to north. That would pretty much do. Now the western side of Texas would not be touched. Well, not so much, but the parts that are highly occupied, they don't have a chance. They don't have a chance because they're not taking care of what's underneath the ground. They're just not.
Well, are we talking magma now rising up toward the gas?
It doesn't even have to rise that far to hit some of those oil lines, oil tanks, and everything else. They have got to. How can they address this? This was built many different years ago, and nobody really counted on revelation happening. Right now, or anything from space penetrating into the ground. Right? No. Like when they say that meteorite fell into Texas, we actually have 4 that struck the USA. It didn't strike anywhere else, just the USA.
Yeah, I know.
And so we have issues and problems that are compounding themselves, and it's only a matter of time. In other words, in order for a big destructive event to take place, we do not need the war machine to do it. We don't need somebody to commit espionage. We don't need terrorism. It could be a small meteorite that hits in the right place, right there in Texas and other places, by the way, who also have these pipelines. And New York, they're in big trouble because they can't take care of their failing systems. The piping is too numerous, too many people. You can't work around those people. And if something were to hit New York, the story's over. It's over. That's going to be it.
So is this balloon? Okay, back to the balloon for a second. Okay, and then I want you to continue on with the story about what's under New York, what's under all these locations. Is the balloon looking for locations to hit us that could? I mean, for instance, if you were Russia or China or somebody, and you had the ability to drop a tactical nuke on Yellowstone, or maybe Texas, maybe it's East Texas, right where you're talking about. I mean, are they analyzing this stuff? They can surely do it from space. They don't need a balloon.
Well, they can do it from space.
Yeah.
And we've already been hacked numerous times to get our info. Anything that we can see, that we can deduce from what's available online, so can they, right? They can do the same thing. So just think about that. And they already have satellites in space.
Yes.
They have probes orbiting the moon. They have a craft on the moon. This is China. So they already have intelligence. They already have that. There are co-op satellites that we have with China in space. So and there's a degree of information we share always, right, for that mutual existence policy. But to send a balloon, for what reason? That's the funny part, because they know we have the capability, like when the first one came over, right? As soon as it transmitted in pulses. We snagged all that data and found out exactly what it was doing.
Yes.
Right? So it was a game of charades was the rest of it. Oh, we got to go get it, right? Because how could a guy know exactly what they were going to do the day before they did it? Yeah. I mean, exactly to a T, right?
They knew.
And name it and it was archived and everything. So how can somebody know that? And then they get out to sea and act like they have to bring in Navy divers to recover it. Are you kidding? They had people on standby. They have to do that. So they're convincing people that they don't have the capability to see things in the sky like people want.
Yep. They want us to believe that, so that way, as we get hit with more meteorites and rocks,
we won't go looking for blood from them.
Right. We won't be hunting them down because
that's right. Also, one more thing.
Yep.
One more thing. They came out with this, the first balloon that was legitimate, right? Yeah. That was a very legitimate issue. That was China's stuff. You can look at China's, if I'm not mistaken, that same satellite, the exact same satellite is archived on some of the Chinese file systems online that you have access to check out some of their, some of their equipment. That balloon is there. It's theirs. But the other balloons, Paul, they came out with this UFO disclosure stuff, right? Which was not disclosure. They came out with these reports that didn't pick up the momentum they thought. It just didn't. It was on fire for about, I don't know, a couple of days, and then it died down, right? They're saying because of Christians. Anyway, it died down. Nobody was interested. Nobody was looking up. Nobody. So this first balloon goes over and people were looking up, but then they instantly stopped. Not a lot of people are looking up. They don't have expectations. All of a sudden, you see a bunch of balloons all over the world flying, right?
Yeah.
All over the world.
Weird objects.
Guess what happened?
Okay.
Guess what happened? After they shot down the second balloon, UFO sightings went up 2,000%. And that means they have people's attention to look up again.
To find UFOs, to watch for these weird...
That's right. That's right. And it's sparking more stories, more this, that, and the other. Now, in the spiritual realm, Satan can't do it. Satan can't do anything. Demons can't do anything unless we empower them to do it.
That's right.
A very real thing. We have to empower. In order for us to empower something like that, or empower Satan to come in our front door, we have to have a desire behind some of his stuff. If a person does not, that's like the Bible says a man is drawn away and tempted of his own lust.
Yes.
So if it's not within us, we're not going to go for it. We can't be tempted into doing anything. But if a desire could be created in us to ask questions, to be inquisitive, to want to see them, because that's exactly what's happening now. People say, well, I want to see it. And they have no idea what they're asking. But they want to see it. They want to experience it. And in every single case, they say it's exciting. It was the most exciting thing that happened in my life. Oh, yes. Because they don't understand when these things get around, they can jolt your spirit. In other words, they can make you feel, it's almost like a feeling of euphoria.
Right.
It's a good feeling, which will lock a person into forever pursuing them. And they won't really pay attention to what they're doing to themselves. Well, they got to get this going before June and July hits. They need a strong desire within people to know more about these things.
Okay, so now
before June and July.
Okay, now before June and July. But now you mentioned March 15th. Is that the date of the next wave of energy? I know you're saying there's some stuff.
March 15 is an oddball pulse coming up from behind us. It's not even from our galaxy. It's very old. It's coming up from.
So
behind
it's not
us.
From the binary system. This is a separate.
This one is not March 15th. No.
Do you expect it to do anything to the sun, or will it hit us?
I have no idea. Pastor Paul.
Okay.
It's coming up from behind us.
Okay.
Right? So it's going to be coming up where most of the solar winds naturally travel. So it'll face a lot of opposition getting through those solar winds. I do suspect, however, that we're going to see a change in the sun. And it could be a violent change in the sun, right? Because we're having a pulse from a direction that's opposite inertia. So if it's strong enough to take effect on the sun, then instead of flares being shot out on the back of the sun, we're going to see flares shot out facing us.
That's not good. That's not good at all.
Not good at all. So
this is March 15th is when the pulse is expected. So so March 15, 16, 17, let's say 72-hour period, we should really watch and see what may develop from that. We're not sure. This is
right.
But you're saying before March 15th, there's some rocks coming, some meteorites. There's some.
Yes, and that's being tracked very closely, Pastor Paul. So that's one of those developing things, and I'll certainly know more as the days
now
continue.
June and July just because you mentioned it, they got to get the public reconditioned to believing that they don't have as much capability as we thought they did, keep us looking up for balloons and UFOs because of what's coming in June, July. So what are you anticipating? Are we talking about now the water event coming, the big event?
No, not the water event.
Okay.
No, this is per the this Beast Kingdom event, I guess you could say. A couple of declarations.
Oh, okay.
A couple of ceremonies are going to take place before June and July, right?
Okay.
What that could be, it could be a dedication to Moloch. It could be a dedication to
What?
Baal. We don't know yet.
So so something on a global scale that's on a pagan on a pagan scale, on a global scale, the world is going to embrace. I'm talking about the world leaders now.
Oh yeah, they're on board. Yeah. They're on board. They're already on board.
Okay, so we should watch for some kind of big announcement. Who do you think is going to make it? Is it coming out of the Pentagon?
Well, I seriously think it's going to be information, and the public, they kind of make a noise. They make noise over whatever they find anyway. I think that this will take off with the public. The public will begin to share, and so begins the anti-faith movement in a lot of areas.
Anti-faith, boy, that's bad. Wow, Mike. Wow. Look, there's so much going on, and I mean, you took time out on a Friday night to come here. I appreciate this because it's really a great show. We talked about these four horsemen for a reason, because it seems as if every one of these are, without question, they're out of the stall, like we said earlier. They're galloping, and they seem to be getting faster. Everything is happening at an accelerated rate to the coming of the Lord. And so people need to be aware. And the Bible told us, though, Mike, as you know, but we're not to be troubled. We're not to be afraid. We're not to live in fear. We got to live in faith, right, Mike?
That's right, because it's our Savior. He's
in charge.
We have a good father, right? We have a good father. A good father is not going to expose his own family to anything that family cannot handle.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
If the kids are dressed and it's cold outside, he's not going to open the door until everybody has a coat on. Right? So we should keep that in mind. Whatever the Lord allows to take place on it, because he's the only one worthy to open the seals. He's the only one. Nobody else can do it. Nope. So he's opening the seals in accordance to our preparedness, our true preparedness. So I guess the next step would be for us to be sincere in our following of him. And Lord knows there's a lot of things we have to quickly work out within ourselves. It felt good to see this 12-day revival at Asbury College there in Lexington, and I understand it spread into about 20 other college campuses. My question is why this thing ended so abruptly. Because I know this, it's so hard to get a revival movement going. The last thing I would do if I had a revival break loose to where people wanted to worship 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 12 straight days, is shut the thing down. Do you feel that the college institutions could be getting some pressure not to let a youth revival take off in America? Pastor, I think that the people appointed to these universities are crooked. That's what I think. I think they're compromised. Amen. They're crooked, and they don't want Christ. Christ is being fought right now, that belief within people. The Antichrist cannot rise in the presence of the Holy Spirit. Right? So some are going to have to fall away. They're going to fight Christianity tooth and nail. Yeah. Nobody said, but you know what? I'll never stop fighting. I only have one speed, fast and forward. Fast and furious. I don't back up or anything else. So, fast and furious, Mike. Come on. There we are with that. We're outrunning the horses right now. We're outrunning the horses. Oh, man. I love you, Mike. I love you. All right, Mike. Hey, God bless you, brother. Thanks for coming on, being with us tonight. Thank you for taking a Friday night instead of a Thursday. But Lord willing, we'll see you. What should we look for next Thursday night, Mike? Anything we should keep an eye on? Yeah, people. People. Just watch what people are doing. Yeah, watch out for people. Watch out for people. Oh. Yeah, don't fall for it. Don't fall. If anybody ever sees, I'll say one thing because I told COT this. If you see a woman laid out in the street, he has a big hat on, a big white hat on, big brimmed hat. Don't fall for the story as to why she's laying in the street. Don't do that. Now I can't go into detail or anything else, but if you see that on TV, like a woman got shot, and she's in the street or something to that nature, she died right there in the street. Don't go for whatever they're going to say behind this. Don't believe it. It's 100% made up. And it's going to lead people in a very wrong direction. Don't buy it. Please don't buy it.
All right.
I'll probably explain after it happens. I know it sounds like an enigma right now, but it won't be when it takes place.
All right. We'll keep an eye on this. We'll watch for it. And we thank you for giving us a heads up on it. We'll continue to keep an eye on what's going on. So bless you, Mike. Thank you so much. I mean, let's keep on the firing line. Let's keep getting them in, brother. Let's get them in.
God bless and keep your pass balls always in honor.
The honor's mine, believe me. God bless.
God bless.